Hello, guys. Good afternoon from Benin. It's raining in Benin, and it's still the rainy season. I don't know where you're joining from, Nigeria or outside Nigeria. Good to have you on this live conversation. Like you have seen in the publicity, is built for 12:30, and yeah, it's 12:30. So let's get into it right away. And for as many that will join, and many that will not be able to join, I'll probably see this video later. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining me on this is Independence Day conversation. I hope I'll be able to do maybe 2 or 3 more of these before Independence Day proper, October 1st. So let me use this medium to personally congratulate you as a Nigerian. Nigeria will be 62 by October 1st, some 2 days away or 3 days away from now, from today. And well, I don't want to get into the conversation of whether we should celebrate or not celebrate. That is not the purpose of this engagement today. I hope it will be an engagement. I'm quite hopeful that someday in the nearest future, we Nigerians can begin to look forward to, or we begin to look forward to the Independence Day celebration, like it's done in other developed countries of the world, and we will look forward to our own independence and have something to really celebrate. Like we're told, or we have been told, it used to be back in the days. It really used to be something to look forward to, and we can. I am hopeful that we'll get there and we'll bring that back. Well, I decided to have this conversation today, and if you look at the topic, I deliberately chose that topic. Somebody tackled me on Facebook. I was like, "No, the Queen has or something. The Queen has or something." And I was like, "Okay, you can join the conversation today and probably share your thoughts, and maybe you can even help to expand the conversation even further." But I'm not seeing. I don't think he's joined. I hope he'll be able to join before the conversation. I end this live call today. Somebody may ask, how do you mean when you say, the Queen or the Queen owes us nothing? Well, the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth II, passed on the 8th of September, early on this month, and it's packed, I guess, unexpectedly, because it appears that the conversation that ensued as relating to colonialism and the British imperialism, especially in Africa. I guess many did not expect that, but it happened. So the conversation was on. I really was not so interested in the conversation for reasons I don't want to get into. But seeing the Independence Day of Nigeria drawing near, I just thought, the thought just packed again. And I was like, okay, maybe I should use the opportunity to look at this issue. Most prominent of all of those outrage is the Nigerian professor who spoke up, who's based in the United States, Uju Anya. And I am particularly not, I must confess, I'm not comfortable with his method, choice of words. And people have said, people have a right to be angry. People have a right to express themselves. Of course, I do agree. I agree that people have a right to express themselves. I agree that people have a right to be angry. But I also believe that, irrespective of the feeling, we must, also care about how we engage, especially for a lecturer, somebody in the academic. You want you want to, think that she probably would have been able to devise more better method of, instigating a debate concerning matters of injustice and, how certain persons have been treated, in the past. I thought that, we could have, she could have, used better methods, and even the choice of words. I thought that, they were better. She had choices. She had a choice in terms of the kind of words she used, and those vile, vicious, attack. I don't think that it was the best way to go. But having said that, does the Queen, have a question to answer? Well, maybe she does. But let's even look at the Civil War, because Ujuanya is obviously of Eastern extraction, Igbo, even though she claimed that herself and her family had to relocate, and she obviously had a taste of the Civil War. At least she had parents and older ones who experienced it, and I can understand all of the anger. But again, I want to reiterate that I feel and I think that looking at who she is and a level of enlightenment, a level of exposure, I would think that there probably should have been a better way of instigating that engagement. I think there's a better way to do that. And I do not buy her methods, her choice of words. I do not. And again, we want to really look at this issue again. It's the fact that Nigeria experienced colonialism, the fact that Nigeria was a victim of British imperialism. That's the reason why we are where we are today. Does that account for the underdevelopment of Africa and Nigeria in particular? I really want to actually the conversation today is going to be focused on that. Why is Nigeria where it is? Why is Africa where it is today? Is colonialism and British or French or European imperialism the major cause of that? Well, now, going back to Uju Aya's outburst, let's even go back to the Civil War. I hope we know that beyond Britain, especially in the early stage of the war, that Russia also gave us very serious help in that war. So it was not just a British affair. Nigeria had to rely strongly, on Russia to support with weapons, and a lot of Nigeria used a lot of Russian help in that war. So it was not just about the England or Britain. Okay, who supported Nigeria in that war? Who supported and who did not support Nigeria? The USA, where she is based nowadays, where the Uju is based now, and she's a lecturer there. The USA was actually indifferent. They were indifferent. They were neither here nor there in the war. So they didn't support Biafra either. So you want to ask yourself whether it is still, in place to want to be, calling people out and, pointing fingers, and blaming other people for, where we are as a people. Well, addressing imperialism and neocolonialism, I think it is high time that Africans, and Nigeria in particular, look beyond what happened in colonialism. I think it is rather quite inappropriate to still want to blame the Europeans and the imperialists for the predicament that we find ourselves as a country. I have a challenge with that. I have a challenge with the fact that we are having to call out for every opportunity. We're having to call out the Europeans for the much that they did during colonialism. Of course, yeah. Maybe there needs to be some reparation, maybe. But you see, Queen Elizabeth II herself, I guess she was not more than, just a ceremonial head. Well, you could say she could have done something. She could have done something. Maybe she could have done something. Maybe she did something that didn't see the light of the day, because, like I said, she was nothing more than a ceremonial head. How much could the queen really do? Maybe she could have done more. Maybe. I'm not here holding brief for the queen, but I want to say that Africans must begin to look beyond colonialism, bearing in mind that it is not only Africa that was colonized. Nigeria is not the only country that was colonized. Many of the countries that are, people go to today, they also suffered colonialism. The Indians, the Chinese, even the Chinese, the Koreans, they were victims of colonialism too. So Nigeria was not the only victim of colonialism. Nigeria is not the only country that suffered imperialism. The Asians have long moved on. The Indians, come on, we can't even forget Mahatma Gandhi and the much that they did to pull India out of the claws of British imperialism and colonialism. They've long moved on. The Chinese have long moved on. Today, China is ably a world power. Even the South American number of countries back in South America, a number of them suffered colonial rule too. Many of them have moved on. This idea of always wanting to point fingers at every given opportunity, I don't think that is the way to go. That is not the way to go. That is not the way to go. And this may offend many, but let me quickly inform you that if you want to even look deeply, you want to ask yourself, I believe that the best Nigeria ever had in terms of, if you all round, all sectors, was the much that the Queen left. It was the much that Britain left. The best vote network Nigeria ever had, the best set of rules Nigeria ever had, was the much that Britain left. We may have expanded the network. We may have grown. We have more roads, but what is the quality, of the roads? We're looking at development. The best form of development Nigeria ever had was the much that the Queen now left. The same Queen that people wants to be crucified. Again, I'm not holding brief for Britain. The best civil service Nigeria ever had was the much that Britain left. The best in terms of quality of goods, economy that Nigeria ever had was the much that Britain left. Go and look at the quality of goods in Nigerian markets. Super substandard. And this quality has been dropping since 1960 till date. Go and look at consumables, building materials and all of those. Substandard, super substandard. That is the much that we've been able to do for ourselves. The best record labels in Nigeria, talking about music and entertainment, were the much that Britain left. After they left, we were just literally going back. The best electricity Nigeria ever had was the much that Britain left. This is a fact. We may have expanded, but what are we expanding? What is the quality of what we are expanding? We're basically just growing and not developing. So you really think that we should be blaming the Queen? Is that what you really think? If you look at, let's look at, I had to save, the comment by Uju Ayan. And she says, you may, I want to believe that you already abreast with the information. And she says, I heard the chief monarch of a thieving, raping, genocidal empire is finally dying. May her pain be excruciating. Then I think much later, she says, If anyone expects me to express anything but disdain for the monarch who supervised a government that sponsored the genocide, that massacred and displaced half my family, and the consequences of which those alive today are still trying to overcome, you can keep wishing upon a star. Again, I said, Uju Aya she has a right to be angry, even though I feel that there's a better way to engage, and probably even get solutions. I don't think engaging like this will help anybody. It won't. But again, I think that we must begin to look inward, especially as Nigeria is marking our 62nd independence. We want to really look inward as a nation. And beyond just Nigeria, the Negro race, we want to really, I believe that Africa's problem is within it. Instead of looking and pointing fingers outside and thinking that other people are our problems, I think that the bigger part of our problem lies within the continent, within ourselves. Africa must take responsibility for our development. Colonialism, or always looking back. Yeah, imperialism was bad. Colonialism had its effect. But I can say, I tell you categorically that colonialism is not where we are. It's way deeper than that. There's something fundamentally wrong with the way we think and the way we see ourselves. I think that is where to start. Yeah, reparation. Maybe we need reparation. But before what, I think that we need to stand on a good moral ground to be asking for reparation and to be asking for other people to apologize for the much that they did to us. Because the fact of the matter is that we're actually doing worse to ourselves. So Africa's problem is way more within it than it is outside. After independence, narrowing it down to Nigeria, after independence, how much have we done for ourselves? After independence, we live in a continent where our leaders take us for it. Right now, we are pointing fingers at other people. You're pointing fingers at the Queen. How about your leaders? We live in a country or a continent where our leaders take our monies, our resources, take it to the same place, to Britain, to Europe, to the United States, stash it there. Nigeria is still reaping from the much that Sani Abacha, embezzled and stashed abroad. Just last month, we received another $22 million. The much that Abacha. And right now, we have a president who does not even have the courage to call Abacha a thief, an embezzler. In fact, we have a president who actually idolizes Abacha, who sees Abacha as a mentor. So for me, we have to start is to learn to take our leaders to account. We must learn as a people, as Africans, to bring our leaders to account before we start, pointing fingers at, and calling people out, talking about what other people did in colonialism and imperialism. There's a lot that we have to do at home. There's a lot that we have to do. We need to start calling leaders, to account. We need to start getting interested in the polity, the much happening around us. For every little thing we want to try, we want to run abroad, we want to run to the same UK, and yet we are pointing fingers at the Queen. So, if you ask me, I think the first place to start is not to call out the Queen. The first place to start is to call out ourselves. And when I say ourselves, it starts from you getting involved in the polity and holding your leaders to account. We encourage our leaders to be irresponsible. We condone irresponsibility on the part of our leaders. We don't encourage our leaders to do what is right. And we do this in many ways. Before we even get to the leader, ourselves as citizens, how do we engage the system? What are we doing to contribute to the growth and development of Nigeria? How much are we doing? Or how much are we doing to contribute to the decadence in the system? You know, the average Nigerian feels that, oh, it is the politician out there, the man in the government house, you know, that is to blame for everything. We don't think we're doing something too. How about the way civil servants behave in their offices? Maybe we should start from there. You as a civil servant, how about the attitudes to your work? This idea of feeling, you know, like government work is, you know, government work is nobody's work. We can do it anyhow. So you go to, I was in a public office the other day, and somebody from one office to another trying to get, you know, civil servants to attend to you, and then you see the attitude. You know, somebody's on the phone supposed to be attending to you, and you can tell that this is not an official call. This call can actually wait. You're having a, you know, personal call, and you have somebody you're supposed to be attending to waiting, and you're just wasting time and, you know, having a good time. You don't think that contributes to where we are? You don't think that has contributed to where we are, that attitude? Because that's the same attitude you want to show, you know, in doing your job. So before we start blaming those outside, we really need to look at ourselves, because I believe that foreigners will not come and fix Nigeria. We will fix our country for ourselves. So the Queen, I insist, owes us nothing. No, she doesn't owe us nothing. I personally believe that we should let the Queen rest in peace. And we should start looking at ourselves. Let's start looking at ourselves. By the way, imperialism. I want to go back a bit. You know, slave trade. Even before colonialism, you have slave trade. Why did slave trade even happen? Why did slave trade last for the time that it did? Because they were willing accomplices amongst the victims. We are the same reason why slave trade lasted. We are the same reason why slave trade, thrived. You had Africans selling their brothers, selling their people, for money. You had kings selling their subjects for money, for resources, for gains. The European or the white man couldn't have just come from his continent to make Africans slave. No, to take Africans away. No, that couldn't happen. We had to also be a willing accomplice. We had to cooperate. The same reason why we are having the decadence in the likes of fraud, internet fraud today. People are literally sending their children, their wards to go learn to be fraudsters, internet fraudsters. Why? Because money. We can get gains. The same reason people sold their people, into slavery to be taken to distant land for money. So there's always the role of the African. The African has a fundamental problem. We need to first look at ourselves as a people, as a race. It is not a mistake that no African country today has achieved any level of remarkable development. No African country, not even South Africa. I guess the most that South Africa has, achieved is probably because, you had the Europeans there as, citizens and natives. How much have we achieved for ourselves as a race, the Negro race? So it should trigger some thoughts. We need to think as a people, what do we want to do with ourselves and our country? There are many questions that we must answer. So this whole idea of wanting to point fingers and blame, I am not very interested in the blame game. I am persuaded that if we fix ourselves, the external factors will be, a smaller problem. I don't think that Europe can stop Africa from developing. I don't think that the United States can stop Africa from developing. I don't think the colonialists and the imperial powers, as they were, can stop Africa from developing. They couldn't stop the Chinese. They couldn't stop the Japanese. They couldn't stop the Koreans. They couldn't stop the Indians. The Indians are doing quite well. So this idea of thinking this water Rodney mentality, I was before this course started, I was going to find my Walter Rodney book. I don't know where I couldn't find it. I read Walter Rodney too. We can cry all we like how Africa underdeveloped, how Europe underdeveloped Africa, but I tell you the truth. Africa is doing more underdevelopment to our continent than Europe is doing. What is my position? My position is that, my submission is that Africa will have to take responsibility. The much that is happening in Africa in terms of decadence and underdevelopment, Africa is to blame. We are to blame. And we must take responsibility and take action. And this is a call, this is a challenge. I'm challenging young people of this generation, Africans of this generation. Let us not buy into this blame game. These hates, this thinking that other people are a problem. The white man is not your problem. Every time we hear of Nigerians being discriminated abroad, even within Africa, you hear of xenophobia in South Africa and a couple of other African countries. You hear, just recently, you see how, the UAE, sending Nigerians back, humiliating Nigerians, immigrants. You want to ask yourself, don't we do worse to ourselves here? Don't we do more injustice, worse injustice to ourselves? Don't Nigerians suffer worse injustices in their land, in their own country? We must solve that first before we start looking outside. Do you know the number of people who die needlessly in Nigeria? Every day. And let me inform you, the figures you see in the media is largely underreported, or is largely reduced. The figures are highly compromised. They are usually higher. The needless deaths, the avoidable deaths in Nigeria, every day. So don't you think we want to look inward first? I think there's a lot that we can do. We live in a country where a 20-something-year-old can beat up a 60-something-year-old and get him to drink flood water because he's wearing the uniform of the Nigerian army. That is what Nigerians do to Nigerians. You want to blame the Queen for that? No, you can't blame the Queen for that. Nigeria, we need to reorientate ourselves. We need to start seeing this respect for our race, respect for our ourselves, the dignity of the human person. We need to understand and learn that. The average Nigerian gets power and wants to oppress. The average Nigerian gets a position and wants to oppress his fellow Nigerian. Instead of seeing how he can use his position, his power, his influence to develop the system, to contribute positively. But we usually want to oppress one another. You want to blame the Queen for that? You can't blame the Queen for that. You can't blame the Queen for that. So the injustices we do to ourselves, we need to start looking at that. The discrimination we do to ourselves, that is where to start. Africa's problem is more within it than it is outside. I think we need to start looking at the fact that it appears that the black man has a fundamental issue that he must first deal with. I had to, because of this call today, I had to go dig up something I wrote, I posted on Facebook about 2 years ago. And I just read to you so that you probably get my thoughts and where I am driving at. I posted this on 15th of September, 2020. Now, just listen. It says, growing up as a black man in Africa, as well as a student of history, I noticed the biggest stranglehold on the average black man are these: selfishness, sentiments, that's shallowness, short-sightedness. Religion, that is pure religion, is supposed to release one from this stranglehold. But what we largely have in Africa is religion plus the 3 S's. Therefore, what has resulted from this ungodly mixture are the following: religion without righteousness or compassion, education without intellect, politics without ideology, business without integrity, and so on. And I made a call here. I said, I urge the black men of this generation, deliver yourself from these vices. Do not succumb to sustaining this ungodly cycle of backwardness in our continent. Black man, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Mental slavery. Renew your mind and be free. Renew your mind and be free. Renew your mind and be free. The queen is not our problem. Colonialism ended like decades ago. And I repeat, the best that we have as a country, the best that we ever had, actually was the much that Britain left. I go over it again. The best road network we ever had, in terms of standard, the best we ever had was the much that Britain left. The best electricity system we ever had was the much that Britain left. I love you to engage me on this. I stand to be corrected. Looking at quality, standard, the best industrialization we ever had was the much that Britain left. They set the pace. They set the standard. But could we sustain it? We couldn't. We couldn't sustain it. They set the path. We couldn't walk in it. So you can't blame the queen. The queen is not your problem. We must look within as a people. As we, have another independence, as we celebrate another Independence Day, it is time to begin to look inward. I'm particularly very excited to see the level of interest we are seeing now. I've shared this many times. I'm very excited to see the level of engagement, especially from the ranks of the young people, that we are seeing in the polity. Unlike the obvious apathy that used to dominate. Now we are seeing young people showing some interest in the polity, and that is good. And I want to also use Medium to congratulate and give kudos to all of those who got involved in the NSAS and all of those who who put in their efforts, who instigated and were part of the planning of all of that. I want to give kudos. Even though you can say that the NSAS probably could not go all the way to achieve much more. Again, you want to also ask yourself, what was even the goal? But at least we can say that we saw Nigerians coming out to speak against injustice, irrespective of the obvious dangers, that in doing that, posed. That is good. That is how a nation develops. To see that Nigerians can come out in unison like that. So I want to give kudos to all of you who participated in that. I don't want to call it uprising now. In that protest, in that act, in that event, and that it should be encouraged. It should be sustained. We need to tell our leaders that we are ready to take them to account. That is very pivotal in achieving development. Europe, the United States, and every other country developing only got there, only achieved that, only we are able to achieve that feat because They built a culture of bringing leaders to account. Whether democracy, whatever system you practice. So we're going to have to look beyond this blame game. It's not going to take us nowhere. It's never. To understand that Africa's problem is more within it than it is outside. That is where to start. Acknowledging the fact that there is a fundamental problem with us as Africans. When you acknowledge that, then 50% of the problem is solved. And then you begin to take action. Action starts, and when I say action, it actually starts from engaging the polity, engaging government, engaging the system. Whether you want to travel, out of the continent or not, even as a diaspora, engage the system. And I know that a number of diaspora Nigerians, Nigerians based abroad, they are doing quite well. They are doing the most that they can do, and that is good. That should be sustained. Instead of the blame game, the Queen is not the problem. The Queen is not the problem. If I believe that colonialism could have been sustained, people say, well, they probably had enough and they left. No. I don't want to believe that the French and the Britons were fed up of exploitation, assuming even if we had to even agree that they actually were exploiting, the continent. I don't want to believe that they were fed up. No, they weren't fed up. There was still a lot of resources to tap. There was still a lot of benefits, that we accrue from staying back. Yeah, obviously they succumbed to resistance. And let's not forget, especially in Nigeria, the North never even wanted independence anyways. They thought, Ahmadu Bello thought that the North wasn't ready. They weren't ready for leadership. They didn't have the intellect, the educational wherewithal. They didn't think we were prepared for leadership. Who knows? Maybe the entire country wasn't actually. Maybe. But you see, we were able to get them to go out. And what have we been able to do with, power? What have we done? What have we been able to do for ourselves beyond the much that Britain, left? We've literally been going back. Our politics has been going back. The economy has been going back since 1960. Civil service, public service has been going back. The values have dropped. The standard has dropped remarkably. Public infrastructure, the standard has dropped remarkably. The best we ever had, I keep saying this, the best we ever had was the much that Britain left. So this is the time to sit down as a people and look at ourselves and speak truth to ourselves and acknowledge that we have not done well and that we have harmed our countries by our own self. And we are the ones that will fix it. Again, I want to say that I'm quite excited. I'm quite impressed with the much that I am seeing, preceding the 2023 presidential election. If we sustain this, I have reasons to believe that, in the near future, truly, we will be on that path to recover the much that is lost, and build on that, and truly work, to building or achieving a truly developed society. There's a lot to be done, from our mindset, the way we think, to the institutions, our police security system. I personally believe that, we have a huge, if this democracy is going to grow, if we're ever going to achieve anything, as a democratic nation, we need to look at our security institutions, especially the police. No police can develop, no democracy will develop without a decent police institution. The kind of police we have now is not going to work. Nigerians need to understand the value of, human rights. We don't have a police who understands that and who can enforce that. The dignity of the human person must be reestablished in our minds. Very important. We don't value ourselves. We don't respect ourselves. Our rights, basic human rights. We need a police who understands true enforcement of laws, and not this excessive coercion that we have from the police. So for this democracy to grow, we are going to have to look at, if I have the opportunity to be president, or if I ever have the powers, to influence all of that, my very first target will be the Nigerian police. We need to reorganize that institution. Very important. We need to reorganize our security institutions, especially the Nigerian police. It will go a long way, to developing our democracy, and it will have, far-reaching impact on society and on how we see ourselves, and how we relate socially, and beyond even prevention of crime. Of course, that is a given. You expect the police to prevent crime and all of that. But you see how we see ourselves, respect, mutual respect. Upholding rights, freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of association. Today we are still grappling with, bail is free and bail is not free. We're still grappling with that after all these years. You still can't go to a police station and be sure that you will not have to pay, to get some, bail. We're still grappling with, basic, law enforcement matters. We have to deal with that instead of blaming the Queen. So, what's my point? My point is that the black man must hold ourselves to account. We must hold ourselves to account as a people. We must hold ourselves responsible for the much that has happened in the continent. And we must take, take significant steps to moving away from where we are to where we should be, instead of blaming. Let's even bring it back to the Nigerian Civil War, and that's going back to the Uju Aya's outburst now. Biafra is still with the Biafra challenge is still with us. How are we solving that? Can we sit down for once and say, you know what? Let's deal with this challenge. Let's deal with this crisis. And that is where I thought the current president, Muhammadu Buhari, has failed woefully in that. In fact, he has escalated the situation and he has not done well at all. I am hoping that we can have a president who will have the courage to look at, we're not even bringing Yar'Adua back to mind now. Having the courage like a man like a president like Yar'Adua, to how he tackled the Niger Delta agitation. Taking both steps, sincere steps, instead of having to blame the Queen. So we need a president who will be able to look at Biafra and say, okay, you know what? How do we move forward? Having the courage to do the needful. I think that's what we need to look at, and not this blame game. I insist, the Queen owes us nothing. We owe more to ourselves than others owe to us. Look at the Abacha loot, the much that has come so far since 1999. Can we account for the Abacha loot? Can we account for the much that has come so far so good? From Obasanjo to Yar'Adua to Jonathan to Muhammadu Buhari. So we have a situation where our leaders take our monies, our resources, take it abroad, and now they are magnanimous enough to send it back to us. We can't even, it's a situation of, looting the loot. What have we done with the money that has been returned? Millions of dollars. What have we done with it? Can we account for it? So you see, so you took your money, you took it to the Queen. Now the Queen is magnanimous enough to send it back to you because it's actually stolen funds. and yet you can't even account for it, and you want to blame the Queen? What have we done with the Abacha loot? It's been relooted. So again, there's a fundamental problem with us as Africans, and I am challenging this generation to not fall into this trap of blame games, of thinking that other people are a problem. Let's not fall into this trap. Again, I say, well, maybe the Queen does, owe us something. Maybe Britain does owe us something. But my point is that dwelling on that conversation doesn't help us. Let us come back and look at the much that we have done, the much that we have contributed to the decadence. How can we first fix ourselves? We do not stand on a good moral ground to be asking for reparation when we are actually doing worse to ourselves. That's the conversation. I think somebody's saying something I like to see. Feel free to share your thoughts. Feel free to share, drop your comments. Steelmaker says the dead Queen. Okay, let me see that. Can I see that comment? I'd love to see that comment. I think she's making a case for those who say that the Queen has a case to answer or something. Now, I need to get my point, actually. I have said maybe the Queen does have questions to answer. Maybe Britain, of course, I'm not going to come here to pretend that colonialism was a blessing. It wasn't. A lot of crime, were committed against Negroes, Africa. There was exploitation of resources. I know all of that. I know the African history. I know the history of colonialism. I know the most that happened, under British imperialism. But my point is that Africa is not the only continent that was colonized. That's my point. After many decades of independence, does it really make sense to still be pointing fingers at England, at Britain? Africa is not the only continent that was colonized. That's my point. That's my grouse. So, Steelmaker, I'm not saying that Britain, doesn't have a case to answer. I'm not saying the Queen probably, at least maybe an apology, starting with, would have made sense. But my point is that Africa is not the only continent that was colonized. Why are we still where we are? Why can't we get up and move? Which brings me to the other, thoughts that there's something deeper, that we have to look at beyond the much that happens to us, beyond the much that, the Europeans did to Africa. Because the Chinese, come on, we know what happened in India. Talking about colonialism. We know the much that Gandhi had to do. Korea, Japan, all of these peoples, they all suffered colonialism. They all, they were touched by British imperialism. But they have since moved on. That's my point. How long would Africa continue to lament? How long will Africa continue to complain? How about we talking about our leaders taking our monies and taking to the Queen now? The same Queen. How about that? How about that? Maybe we should begin to look at that. That's my point. I was talking about Abacha loot. Abacha loot from 1999 to 2022, as of today, a whole lot, maybe hundreds of millions have been returned to Nigeria. Can we account what have we invested Abacha loot in? What investment, what infrastructural development have we achieved as a result of the much that Europe has, and the United States, has returned in the Abacha loot? But what we have is a case of us relooting the loot. Like I said earlier on, we have a president who cannot even acknowledge that Abacha is a thief. We have a president who has Abacha as a mentor. We have a president who, for any slight headache, runs to the Queen for treatment. President Muhammadu Buhari, now this is not me, I'm not trying to call the president out per se. I'm not even being critical. This is just a given. This is just things that we know. Basic challenge that we have in Nigeria. President Muhammadu Buhari has been president for over 7 years now. He still goes to the Queen to get his health fixed. How about we talk about that? How about we start from there? That is my point. It's not because, of course, I know that Britain has some questions to answer. They have been answering some of those questions, and they will. I know that definitely, hopefully, nature will bring them to book. But before, Felix, yeah, you talk about, I think Felix is talking about the victim mentality. Yeah, I agree. This being slave to this our history will not take Africa nowhere. Okay, Steelmaker says, yes, but Africa is the only continent where millions of people were transported as slaves. Again, Steelmaker, again, I hope you know. I guess you joined quite late. I did make mention of that. I hope you know that the only reason that slave trade thrived in Africa was because Africans collaborated. In fact, when the Europeans first came to Africa, they didn't come here to slave trade. They didn't come here to buy slaves. Go check your history. They came to Benin, the Portuguese came to Benin, the 1500s, 1600s. They didn't come here to buy slaves. They were not buying slaves. They were treating Africans as equals. They were doing trade. They will bring goods from Europe, they exchange for goods, from Africa and ship back to Europe. That was what they were doing when they came initially, Steelmaker. So when the white man came to Africa, initially they were not buying slaves because there were no slaves to buy. But you see, how did the whole idea of slave trade, even came to be and thrived for that long? Even after the abolition, Africans, still collaborated with the migrants from Europe to sustain this trade for a long time. Africans were selling their brothers. Africans were selling their fellow Africans. Kings were selling their subjects to Europeans. How about we look at that, the role that we play too? Africans were selling their fellow Africans for gold, for silver, for diamonds, for fabrics, European fabrics. How about that? How about we talk about that? Again, it brings me back to the thoughts that I said early on, and I believe that strongly. There's something fundamentally wrong with the African, and we must first acknowledge that. Acknowledging that truth, that fact, solves half of our problem. There's something fundamentally wrong with us. Before we start blaming the Queen, we must first acknowledge the fact that there's something fundamentally wrong with us, and we must fix ourselves. First, we are here today. And like I said, I'm quite excited to see the much that is happening in the politics today. You see young people getting involved in the politics. That is a place to start. That is a people taking responsibility, saying that if we don't do this, nobody's going to do it for us, irrespective of the dangers that that may pose. Again, I give kudos to everybody who participated in the NSAS. Whether you came, to you joined the protest, or you did something on social media, promoting, the agenda and all of that. I give kudos to you. That is good. That is where to start. You need to tell your leaders that you are interested in the most that they do, and that you are ready to take them on if they put your life, or if they jeopardize your life, your future. People don't understand the significance of government. I keep saying this. People don't understand the significance of government. Government is too important. Africans must begin to show interest in their governance, in those who govern them. the process, the polity. Government is too important. From birth to death, government is involved with all of your life. Birth, if your birth is not registered by government, you have not been born. Your marriage, if it's not recognized by government, you're not married. Your death, if it's for you, for anybody to ever claim maybe death benefits, you have maybe you lose a parent, to ever claim death benefit, the government must first acknowledge that death. So government is too important. It's important in everything. You're going to have to work, get a job, whether you're running business or you want to go seek for a job. Government is important. It's involved. The tax policies, job creation, all of that. So government is too important to be left. The African must now start showing interest in, the policy from Nigeria to Ghana. And I must give kudos to the Ghanaians. The Ghanaians, probably even took, were in the forefront even before us. The average Ghanaian, the average Ghanaian secondary school student is already very, interested in politics. Unlike the Nigerian, but it appears that is changing now in Nigeria, and I hope that we can sustain that, because that is how true development comes. Before now, we started to hear that Ghana democracy was developing, some of the progress they were making. It appears that there's been some level of stagnation over there now. I hope that they can wake up, which led to Barack Obama, while he was president, visiting Ghana, snubbing Nigeria for Ghana. And, you saw world leaders coming to Ghana because democracy was growing. Why? Because the people were showing interest. That is it. And Ghana has reaped from that. So I'm challenging you today as a young person, as Nigerians of this generation. I want us to take our destinies in our hands, because whether Nigeria is going to fail or succeed is in our hands. Nobody's going to do that for us. Quit this old blame game of blaming the Queen. You can blame the Queen all you like. The Queen is dead now. You can blame the British monarch all you like. It's not going to change nothing. I hope you are aware that even the much that come as aid, African countries can't even account for them. You have a situation where the Americans will send aid to Africa, the British will send, the Europeans will send, France will send, and all of that, even China. Our politicians can't account for them. We get aids in medical aids, economic aids, and all of that. We can't account for them. Somebody misappropriates the money, converts them to personal use. That is where we should start from. We need to start having all of those conversations instead of blaming the Queen. That's my grouse. That's my my point. So the Queen is not the problem. The Queen is not the problem. The problem is way deeper than that. If you could quantify all of the damage you think colonialism did to Nigeria or Africa, and you want them to pay reparation, and you want to quantify that into into a sum, and you say, okay, Britain, pay us now. I tell you the truth, if Britain pays Nigeria 10 billion pounds, 100 billion pounds, it's a matter of short time, and we're back to base. So if they pay you reparation now, what are you going to do with it? Because you've not developed a sense of organization, a sense of development. We don't even know where we want to go as a nation. Today we're still grappling, we're still dealing with, Nigeria is Nigeria constitution, we are not one. Come on. An Igbo man should be president, an Hausa man should be president, a Yoruba man, and all of that. We're still grappling with all of that. There's still hate amongst us. We're still having to struggle with, our religious differences. We've not had a leader who has been able to bring us together. Nigeria needs a leader who can bring us together. Yeah, I'm not saying that we must all work. Another thing is I guess we also have a false understanding of unity. I don't think that the Igbo man must now begin to see the Hausa man see himself as an Hausa man. The Hausa man begins to see himself as a Yoruba man. No, that's not what I'm necessarily talking about. Yoruba man, I'm a Benin man. I'm a Benin man. Yoruba man is a Yoruba man. But you see, we must come to the point where we understand that our differences is not supposed to be a weakness. Rather, it is strength. The diversity is strength. We need a leader who can help us to harness all of that strength that we now see as witnesses, the differences. How about the tourism that, that are bound in all of that differences? Ethnicity, cultures. How about the tourism that we can develop from that? So we need a leader who can harness all of this. And beyond, because we're always quick to talk about leadership. Beyond even leadership, we need a responsive citizenship. That is where you as a Nigerian, everybody must now begin to see that we have a role to play in all of this. No matter how insignificant you think you are. In fact, there's nothing like that, actually. There's no one citizen that is insignificant. In your little domain, in your little corner, you have a role to play. This idea of always thinking that the man in Aso, the man in the government house is the problem. We have to change that mentality, because you are doing a lot. You are contributing a lot to the polity. I made mention of, civil service, where I said, I was in the government office in last week, and, the attitude, a civil servant is on phone. Obviously, this is not an official call. A personal call, and you have, somebody you need to attend to, and you're on it. This call can actually wait. You wouldn't do your private business like that. That contributes to the system. As little as that actually not little anyways, as little as that contributes to the system, to the decadence in the system. Election period. How about how we engage politicians? How about that? How about how we live in a country where people blame politicians, yet we have parents in this country who help students to pass exams, who rig exams for students, for their children, for their wards. And then you blame the politician for rigging election, for trying to manipulate the process, for trying to manipulate the budgets, and, but you are doing exactly the same thing. You help your children to pass exams. How about that? How about we start from that? How about we take responsibility? So this idea of always thinking that, the politician is the problem. No, it's our issue as a country and as a race and as a continent is deeper than that. This pointing finger, it's the queen, it's the government, it's the governor, it's the president. How about, it's me? And you probably want to look at yourself and say, okay, how am I contributing to this decadence? Look at the Nigerian markets, substandard products. You can't blame the president for that. Yeah, you say cost of production. Yeah, I agree. But you see, we have built a culture of substandard, so that we now have not just substandard products, we actually have substandard human beings, the mind. If your mind is not developed, you can't think properly, you are substandard. The drugs in our, pharmaceuticals, the drugs in the medicine stores, substandard. In fact, if there's anything that I fear most in Nigeria is the level of substandard in our market. The goods, the beverages we drink, the drugs we take, the building materials, you hear of building collapse in Lagos and all other places. It makes me fear. But see, at the end of the day, it is human beings that is behind all of that. So before we start pointing fingers, how about we look at the role that we play? Elections are coming now. How are you going to vote? I'm not here to advise you on you to vote, but again, what are your methods of engagement? Do you need somebody to pay you before you vote? Do you put the interest of the country? Do you consider the interest of the country? Do you put the interest of the country above all other considerations? Ethnic, monetary gains, religious consideration, the interest of the country. Is that what is paramount? Because whether we like it or yes, you are going to have a president, and we are going to live for another 4 years with, have to grapple with the policies and, all of the actions that, is going to carry out. We're going to have to bear with it. We're going to have to cope with it. So what role are we playing now to ensure that the next 4 years will not be another setback? So that's where we start. That's what we look at. That's how we engage the policy. What are the factors that affect how we choose leaders? What are the factors that affect how we promote leaders, how we project leaders? Instead of pointing the finger at the queen. Well, I want to believe that it is hard time we probably let the queen rest in peace and look at ourselves as a people and look at the most that we can do. Acknowledge that we too, we have done something. We've contributed to the decadence. And, take responsibility. So, those are the thoughts, running through my mind. And I thought that, I should, situate this. And, I know that's headline, that heading, the queen, owes you nothing, really triggered some, lots of persons were not very, I got a couple of messages, and some persons are not very comfortable with that. And they feel that the queen does owe us. And, well, I would say that you probably owe yourself more than the queen does to you. And I'm challenging you, as we have another independence, we should now begin to understand the very statement of John F. Kennedy. I know that you don't like to hear that statement. Think not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. This is not a cliche statement, We really need to start looking deeply at that statement. When people say, well, before John F. Kennedy said that, they probably have done much for American people. That's not true. That's not true. Go look at your history. Actually, John F. Kennedy said that in a time where America was grappling with quite a lot. Time will not permit me to probably go into some of that history now. So it's not true. Nigeria needs you. Nigeria needs you more than ever before. You can't even blame the nationalists. You can't blame Obafemi Awolowo. You can't blame. I would say that, because we are talking about independence now, I would say that they made their mistakes. Yeah. Because, people keep talking about, we need young people. We need young people to lead. It's not about young people. No, it's about leaders with ideas. Because people clearly forget that 1960, 1950, the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, those who had the opportunity to lead Nigeria, the nationalists and those we call heroes today, were actually young people. They were in their 20s and 30s. I guess maybe Nnamdi Azikiwe, who was probably in his late 30s. A number of them were in their 20s, early 30s. So they were young people. Young people brought us where we are today. Olusegun Obasanjo, even before he became president in 1999, democratically elected, he was president as far back as, in the 70s. He was young. He was in his 30s, I guess. Yeah, 30s. So it's not about young people. It's about leaders with ideas. It's not about, I don't even care having an 80-year-old being president. Come on, Joe Biden is old. Donald Trump, as president, was old. So it's not about age. It's about ideas. We must begin from the councillorship to the local government level to the governorship. We must begin to deliberately look at leaders with ideas, leaders who love the people, leaders who love their people, leaders who have a track record. I believe that if we do that long enough, if we have a succession of leaders who are sincere, who truly love the people with ideas, it's only a matter of short time we will find our footing. Now, I don't think that we need a leader who knows everything. No, I don't think we need a leader who is an expert in the economy, expert in security. No, we don't need that. We just need a leader who is enlightened. We need a leader who is sincere. We need a leader who has some track record of, delivery, of performance. We need a leader, even most importantly, a leader who has value for fundamental human rights. That's one thing we usually ignore in Nigeria. There is too much violation of rights in Nigeria. We need to fix that. And I talked about the police earlier on. There's no democracy that will grow without a decent police institution. So we need a leader who has value for human rights. The rights of Nigerians must be respected. Nigerians have suffered too much violation of human rights. Needless deaths, needless incarceration, needless abuse. We need to fix that. We need a leader who respects human rights, who has value for human rights. Freedom of association, freedom of movement, freedom of speech. You know, we need a leader who would not, who would be, kind to the press. A leader who will not want to muscle the press for, every little reason, criticism. A leader who is so afraid of criticism. We don't want that. We need a leader who is receptive to criticism. Of course, no government really wants to be criticized. But you see, we need a leader who is a Democrat, who understands the importance of criticism. So we need a leader who is a Democrat. So instead of blaming the Queen, you want to be doing the most that you can do. You want to be looking out there. You want to be, thinking, setting the pace, setting the agenda for leaders. Because I believe that, with all due respect to, the leaders, we can criticize the leaders all we want. But again, the leaders may be taking a cue from us. Come on, these leaders are human beings. You understand? Export the average Nigerian politician to Europe or the United States. It will shock you that they will do well. The average Nigerian leader doesn't, break traffic rule abroad. In fact, they don't. So again, they are taking a cue from us. They are watching us. Because we allow our leaders to misbehave. Yeah. How about we take responsibility and say, the reason our leaders behave the way they behave is because we allow them. It is time to now take leaders to account. And it doesn't have to be another answers. If need be, we shouldn't shy away from that. But you see, it starts from, saying something. Dropping a Facebook post, Twitter, a tweet, shooting a video and saying something. It starts from there. Just sitting back, laying back and complaining. Complaining won't help. You can't, you can't get your oppressors off, your grip by lamenting. Deliberate action, decisive action. Julian Blaine says, I am Australian. Okay. I love to see that. I love to see that. How do I bring up these comments now? Okay. Is he or she now? Says, I stumbled across you by accident and motivate. Okay. Thank you, Julian. Thank you very much. It's so exciting to hear that this is even going across the borders of Nigeria. And somebody is making that comment saying that I'm making sense. So thank you for encouraging me. And I know that you understand the more that I said. Come on, this is what you take for granted out there. Participation. And that's why it's called participatory democracy, participatory governance. Actually, there's a role that citizens must play. We usually shy away from that and blame the Queen. There's a role that citizens must play in achieving development. It's a two-way thing. Like they say, it's a social contract. The leaders play their part, we play our part. So I am challenging Nigerians today as we, with days preceding the independence, as we celebrate the independence again. I want you to celebrate, at least celebrate in hope. We hear of stories of how Independence Day used to be. I am very hopeful. I'm anticipating that very soon in the near future, we can begin to, anticipate Independence Day because we have something to celebrate. I am hopeful that in the near future, hopefully we get it right in this election, and from there upward, Independence Day will be something to look forward to. If you even look at at least when I was still growing up in the 90s, as a kid, it used to be better than what we have now. It used to be much better. The standard and the quality and the excitement has continued to drop. I hope that we can find that again, that we can truly celebrate this country. Nigeria is a great country. We can truly, have a country to celebrate, have something as we celebrate. We're not just celebrating, out of compulsion, but we are celebrating because we truly have a nation that we can call our home. We have an economy that we can say, yeah, this is a thriving economy. We have a health system that we can rely on. We have an educational system that we can be proud of, an educational system that can truly produce the leaders of tomorrow. An educational system that we can truly rely on to promote enlightenment in society. That day will come. So I am going to celebrate this independence in hope. I am going to, at least for the much that I am seeing in the politics, the awakening. I must say it again. I am so excited. I didn't think, I've always been hopeful about Nigeria, but I didn't think that I would see, a day, this early, where Nigerians will be so interested in the politics. When the Big Brother show, was coming up, a lot of Nigerians, expressed fears that the momentum in the politics would die down, especially in the camp of one of the candidates, Peter Obi of the Labour Party, because it appears that young people, his camp is dominated, his supporters are dominated by young people and social media users, and they fear that the momentum was going to die down, the support was going to go down. But I am excited to tell you that actually it is the organizers of the Big Brother show that is now lamenting, counting their losses. That is a plus for Nigeria. That is a plus for Nigeria. It is a plus for the system. It's a plus for the policy. I am so excited to hear that. They are the ones actually counting their losses because the audience dropped remarkably. Why? Because people were doing politics. If you understand where we are coming from, because some of us have been involved in all of, in this, for some time, and we know how it is. So you will not understand why somebody like me will be celebrating that. It has shown that we are now moving away from the, high-level apathy, political apathy, and we are going to a point where Nigerians are now beginning to be responsive. So I must give Nigerians kudos for that. So it's not all negative. Like we're actually seeing citizens coming up. We are only now saying that, because there's still a wide, area to cover. A lot of Nigerians needs to be, brought in. And because the more we are on this side, those of us who really want to see, things change, the better for the system. And then we truly can now, have a voice in speaking truth to power and bringing leaders to account. So instead of wasting time blaming the Queen, that's not going to take us anywhere. So I congratulate Nigerians, as many Nigerians out there, doing the much that they are doing, irrespective of who you are supporting, and let me chip this in again. Please let us respect the political choices of people. It is a democracy. That people support, other candidates outside your own, should not be a reason for vilifying, or threatening. I think we must show a lot of maturity. As much as we say that the policy is developing, we want to develop right by doing it right. Respecting the choices of people is a fundamental right of people to decide on who they want to vote for, and I think we must respect that right. Because you don't want to be, on the receiving end. You don't want to be in a situation where, people vilify you for your political choices. So I just thought I should say that. So as much as I thank you, I encourage you, and I appreciate the involvement and the engagements and the awakening. I want us to do it right. I want us to respect each other and our choices, and hopefully, God willing, we will have a president that we will be proud of, that can really take this country, that can set us on the path of true development, that can truly take this country on a path of progress, that will fix us, establish us on a path of true prosperity, peaceful coexistence, tolerance, peace, unity, and all of these needless deaths can truly stop. So we're doing 1 hour 20 minutes now, and I feel it's a good time to be rounding off. I feel it's a good time to be winding up. For those of you who could not join, I know that you get to see this video and you can get to watch and you still drop your comments, your thoughts. Who knows, your thoughts can also further instigate another conversation. The conversation is not ended, obviously. There's a lot to talk about. I hope to still be able to do maybe 2 more Independence Day conversation and still get to look at, a couple of other issues, a number of, issues to talk about. Nigeria at 62, a whole lot to talk about, And for me, this is quite remarkable. The Independence Day this year, coinciding with the general election period, is quite remarkable. And I think it probably make it even further interesting. And I urge you to celebrate. I urge you to be excited, in anticipation of a truly new Nigeria. I know that these elections will come and go. Nigeria will not die. Nigeria will not implode. And I want you to do your best to comport yourself in an orderly manner. We owe this country that duty to ensure that this country doesn't implode because of this political event that is coming up. I know that there's tension. I know that there is a lot of tension. But you see, we've always had that. Yeah, maybe this one is quite peculiar, but Nigeria will survive, we will survive. And we will survive. We will survive. So thank you for joining me on this call. I will definitely announce the next one. And please, if you have not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. I am depending on you to subscribe to this channel. I want to be able to take this to at least 1,000, and so that we need to be growing here, and whatever support you can give me here, I really would appreciate all of your support. And we need all the support we can possibly get here. It's a lot of work, a lot of resources sustaining this. And I'm counting on you first by subscribing, liking, share the videos. You do me a lot of help when you do that. So again, I say, the Queen doesn't owe us nothing. The Queen is not our problem. Let us begin to look inward. And let's begin to take responsibility for the destiny, the growth and development of our country. And I tell you, just like every other nation, states that has been colonized or that has suffered imperialism, who have been able to move forward and raise their head high, we too will get to that point where we can look back and say, irrespective of the much that they did to us, we are standing. And Nigeria has great potentials, of course. That we are called Giants of Africa is not a fluke. It's not a hype. Nigeria truly is the Giant of Africa, and we must stand, because I believe that the destiny of the Negro race depends on this country, Nigeria, and we must stand to take responsibility. The Asians, the Chinese, the Koreans, they've long moved on. The Japanese, they've long moved on. India, they've long moved on. Let us stand up beyond and rise beyond colonialism and imperialism and move on. And we have the potentials. We can do it instead of blaming the Queen. Thank you. My name still remains Efe Cole Amadin. Thank you for doing this with me. Happy independence. God bless you. My Nigeria people will now do well.